the other deficit was my speech, and it was slurred, but worse than it is now. And according to my therapist who knows the ins and outs, and to people who I just talked to, they say, "Oh, it's gotten quite a bit better, Kevin." So I'm happy that I'm on the track, but I don't know how far I'll come back. It's funny because I'm not kidding. I was looking towards retirement from my job, and I had taken the first course in voice casting and broadcasting and basically learning how to use your voice and make money at it.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamis, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Hello and welcome to the Recovery After Stroke podcast. Today is a very cool day. Apart from the fact that I have another fantastic guest for you, I would like to let all my viewers and listeners know that my book, The Unexpected Way That a Stroke Became the Best Thing That Happened, is in the final stages before publication and almost ready to launch. And in order to celebrate the completion of this 4-year project, I will be giving away the first chapter free. To grab your copy, all you have to do is go to recoveryafterstroke.com/book, have a look around and discover what the book is all about. And if your curiosity gets the better of you and you want a little sample of the book, then all you have to do is click the download free chapter button. Very shortly after, the free PDF of chapter 1 will be forwarded directly to your email inbox. Once the book is published and available for purchase, you'll be among the first to know, and I hope you will decide to purchase a copy either for yourself or someone else that may be benefiting from reading the book. Just go to recoveryafterstroke.com/book and get your free chapter after this episode. Now, if you are a stroke survivor with a story to share about your stroke experience, come and join me on the show. The interviews are not scripted. You do not have to plan for them. All you need to do to qualify is be a stroke survivor who wants to share your story in the hope that it will help someone else who is going through something similar. If you are a researcher who wants to share the findings of a recent study, or you are looking to recruit people into your studies, you may also want to reach out and be a guest on my show. If you have a commercial product that you would like to promote that is related to supporting stroke survivors to recover, there is also a path for you to join me on a sponsored episode of the show. Just go to recoveryafterstroke.com/contact, fill out the form explaining briefly which category you belong to, and I will respond with more details on how you can connect with me via Zoom. This is episode 270, and my guest today is Kevin Housman, who has had his fair share of health challenges, including stroke. Nonetheless, Kevin continues to find ways to move forward and joins me on the show in the hope of raising awareness and encouraging others to go after recovery. Kevin Housman, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Nice to meet you, Bill.
My pleasure. Nice to have you here. Tell me a little bit about what happened to you, Kevin.
Well, I guess it all started about 8 or 10 years ago, really, when I developed essential tremor. And I went to the doctors and they checked me out. It wasn't Parkinson's, so I was relieved to hear that. But the tremor was just something that happens, goes on in the brain, and it makes your hands and arms shake a little bit in my case. And it got progressively worse. So about a year and a half ago, I decided to have an elective DBS surgery, deep brain stimulation, to correct it. And that involves putting 2 electrodes in your head and then wiring it to a battery pack that's implanted in my chest, and it sends current into this portion of my brain, and it stops the tremors, and it works pretty well. Not completely, but way, way better. And I'd say that part of the surgery was a success. The problem was that during the first procedure on October 24th of last year, they say they put an electrode in the wrong spot on my right side. So it would be the left hemisphere. And they missed the target apparently. And I had a stroke of not a real severe one, fortunately, but enough to make my right side droop, and I couldn't speak very well. My right hand and right leg were weak, and I had to take some PT right away to learn how to walk. And that came back pretty fast, but the thing that hasn't come back is my writing, the fine motor skills, and I still have the speech problem, but it's gotten better too with speech therapy.
Okay, so how how is your speech differently? How is your speech different? So we wouldn't know what it was like. Can you describe it to somebody who has never met you before and tell them how your speech is different? What do you notice about it?
Yes, what I notice about it, and when talking to my wife and other people close to me, um, to help it be more clear, I've slowed down the pace of my speech demonstrably. And um, hopefully, with the right setting on my electronics, you don't have too much trouble understanding me.
Mm.
But uh, I'm a salesman. I sell commercial office space, so I lease and talk to people all day long. And, it kind of sounds like I'm about 3 martinis into a nice evening when I talk to them. And some people have a problem with it. Other people, they'll
Other
react to
people
a
want a
little joke
martini.
about it. But that's been a bit of a hassle. And well, not only that, and writing and stuff is hard. It's a little bit difficult to still move around. I don't find walking as easy as my right side has this weakness that needs some more work. And is also the current state of the office market isn't helping anything in terms of production. It's the place not to be right now is in
Yeah.
the office, but making a living, and I'm back at work now. Most recently, 4 days a week, and I'll start full time in 2 weeks.
Okay. So these tremors, was it one day you didn't have the tremors and then one day you had them, or was it a gradual increase of the tremor rate and then it got to the point where it was uh very difficult to deal with?
Yeah, good question. I it to me it seems remembering back like it was very much a gradual thing. I can't remember a day on which I didn't or did have it. I just remember like having a slight tremor early on that would be like if you had a reaction to some medication for your asthma or something like that. It sometimes makes you mm, uh, tremor a little bit, but it goes away. And I found that during stress, which I try not to get stressed out, but sometimes life happens, and during stress, the tremors get worse.
Yeah. If you can work out the I don't get stressed gene, if you know what that is and how you do it, let me know, and we'll
Okay.
sell it. We'll sell it for $1 squillion to everybody.
It sounds good.
Everybody
Uh,
gets stressed. So you notice that when you have it would be a tough day at work or uh,
yeah.
lack of sleep or something that just interferes with your feeling of being rested or well or
Yes.
stable, then you notice that the tremor gets worse. Is it did it get to the point where it was impossible to hold a glass of water?
Well, no, but it got impossible to carry. Well, it did get impossible to carry a full glass of water across the room without spilling it. And that's when I kind of decided, man, I got to do something. It's obviously progressed in my case, and people noticed it at work, and who knows what they would attribute it to. The Either I've been drinking and just stopped, or I had some other ailment, and I some people I told, but a lot of the folks I run into aren't. I'm not real close to them. I deal with them for a while during a deal, and then we don't see each other. So I don't I feel like I have to explain it, but I was showing office space one day to this very nice lady who's a broker, and she represented a company that wanted space. So this is about 2.5 years ago now. Um, and after the tour, I called her, which is my habit, and said, "How do we do? Is there some interest? How does your client feel about what they saw?" And she said, "Everything looks fine. We're interested. We're going to send you a proposal, but I wanted to ask you a personal question." And I said, "Sure." And I didn't expect this, but she just came right out and said it. "I noticed your tremor. And does it bother you?" And I said, "Yes, it bothers me. I have essential tremor." And she said, "So does my sister. And she's having a surgery to correct that." And she said, "I know a doctor who's like the best in his field over at Cedar Sinai, which is the famous place they treat all the stars." And so she put me in touch with him. I got right in, no waiting. And I guess she has some influence. And turns out he's a very nice man. I saw him for a good year to year and a half before deciding to pull the trigger on the surgery. Now he doesn't perform surgeries. He's sort of the electrical magician, the electrical magician. And so he works on electronics, but there's a surgeon he works with who does perform these surgery regularly, and that's who I had do it.
Did you call him a magician?
I sort of did. I meant to say, yeah, he is sort of like an electrical magician. The
Okay,
guy is very accomplished.
okay. I know what you're saying. So he's good at working out where electrical things happen in the head, and he
Yes.
plays with it. And I know I'm butchering it. I know I'm not talking about his skills properly, but he plays with it, and then he resets things and he fixes things. And okay,
Yes.
all right, we'll
He
call him a magician.
understands it really well.
Okay, I understand. All right, so that seems like you've done all your due diligence. You've taken some time to consider the whole process, and you've spent quite a lot of time in the pre-procedure phase, which is talking and understanding your condition, etc. And then you decided to pull the trigger and get the procedure done. And then during the procedure, you experienced a stroke. Now, uh, I'm going to ask a question: did the
Okay.
procedure resolve the tremor?
I would say 90% it resolved it. I still have a little bit of tremor,
Right.
so I can take one dose, a very small dose of a medicine called propanolol that is a beta blocker that helps calm your tremor.
Okay.
And with that, I'm pretty good on the tremor.
Okay.
And I'm even better when you have the remote that I have that controls the device. Um, it has two settings on it for me. One is what I've got it on now that allows me to talk better, and the other one ramps it up a little bit, and I guess they zap me a little more, but they it that helps me have less tremor even than I do now, and, um, but it makes my speech a little bit more impacted.
Okay, so that thing is currently installed into
Yes.
your brain, and you can adjust the settings and get a different kind of experience.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
that's
kinda
trippy.
weird.
That's
Yeah,
trippy.
it's
That's definitely
so
magic stuff. That's magician stuff for sure. Okay. So
Yeah.
so it was partly successful, but then you had this other complication.
Yes.
So all right. Now, I wonder if there's a possibility, and I don't know. So I'm a novice, so I'm just asking because I'm curious, right? I wonder if
Yeah.
there's a possibility that is it possible that these tremors are made worse by the person trying to overcorrect them?
Um, I see what you mean. I I don't know, uh, that would be a question concerning how voluntary, involuntary it is,
Yeah, that's what I
and
mean.
I don't really know. I haven't, like, done any meditation or other type of therapy to help me
Okay.
stop the tremor.
Okay. I wonder if you've then listened to any of the recent podcast episodes, specifically episode 263 with Yuji Oka.
263.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a listen to that episode because it's about a gentleman who helps people uh, connect their body to their brain again, is the way that he describes it. Well, he doesn't describe it like that I do.
Yeah.
He describes it far more eloquently than that. And in that interview, one of the specific subjects that we speak about in a video that he sent me was about a young kid who got hit by a car. And after the lengthy recovery process, developed a tremor.
Really?
Yeah. And they worked together so that they can decrease the tremor.
Wow.
Yeah, in his arms. And there was no medical intervention, but there was a a oh my gosh, I don't even know how to describe it. It was kind of like a reawareness intervention where Yuji supported this young child, this teenager, to reconnect with his brain and to stop overcorrecting. So what he was doing, this kid, was he was holding his hand to keep it still, but that holding it and keeping it still meant that he was somehow interfering in the process and making it worse. So the more he
Uh-huh.
focused on it, the worse he made it. And the worse he made it, the worse the loop got, and it just got out of hand where it was
Ah,
un, unable to be he was unable to hold a cup or a glass or anything. But then with time, they kind of reversed that process somehow, and they got him to have uh, a meaningful use of his arms so that he could hold a glass of water and drink it without
wow.
spilling it. Yeah. So
That's incredible.
he's an amazing guy, this Yuji Oka. I mean, this guy is like, he's like a Japanese magician. Like, he's
Yeah.
just got oh man, he's a cool dude. And he's just so smart and he talks about amazing things. And now I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and you might benefit from at least understanding the concept behind it. And
Okay.
Yuji is also somebody who I reckon you could reach out to, and he would be happy to uh, have a chat with you.
Oh, thank you for that. He sounds like the kind of guy I should have talked to before I had the surgery.
Look, that meant I don't know how that would have come about, because if you didn't have a
Yeah,
stroke, you never would have met me, and I never would have suggested him. So I don't know how it
yeah,
would have happened.
I know.
I had to have a
It's,
stroke too. I had to have my stroke 10 years ago so that we could get
uh,
to this stage.
wow.
Yeah. Anyhow.
You had a stroke 10 years ago?
Yeah. So in February 2012, I had a brain hemorrhage, and then I had two more after that and brain surgery. And I
Yeah,
had to learn how to use my left side again and had to learn how to walk again. And I still live with the deficits today. You can't see them, but my deficits are also, there's a little bit of motor there's a little bit of motor issues. So a little bit of my left hand and my left leg kind of don't know where they are in the world. It's called
right.
proprioception issues. And then the skin burns, is hot, uh,
Oh,
it's cold, uh, it's uncomfortable for people to touch it. My balance
oh,
is a little bit out. So I have a number of different symptoms,
I see.
and that's what motivated me to get into this space and start speaking to other people about their stroke conditions. And what's interesting is I've never spoken to somebody who has had a procedure like yours that caused a stroke. There's a thousand ways to have a stroke, believe me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's stunning how many ways there are to have a stroke. So I'm curious about that side. I know there's some stuff going on that we can't talk about anything. So if I ask a question that you can't answer right now, you just let me know. But what was it like when you experienced the tremor treatment? You were awake for that, yes?
For part of the procedure, I was awake. After they placed the probes in, I'm thinking it must have been let me wake up in surgery. And it's remarkable. They've had guys, play the guitar and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
they didn't do that. They didn't want to listen to me. But uh,
because you're
they,
terrible at guitar.
yeah, but but they they I remember them speaking to me, and they said, "Can you talk, Kevin?" And I talked, but I guess it was coming out funny, and my right side was drooping, and they probably noticed something was wrong then, but they put me back together. And then about 5 days later, they did a restorative surgery to redo the replacement, and it worked.
Okay, so you're woken up from surgery and you've noticed that the tremor is better, but now you've had a stroke. So what's going on in your head? What are
That's
you
right.
thinking?
Well, I didn't know for about another month that I'd had a stroke. I was unaware that the scan said that, and they didn't tell me that I had a stroke. So I I was just told, look, we put the probe in the wrong place, and it was somewhere that affected your speech, and it was like it got bruised in there. A vessel was bruised. It should come back, is what they told me. And so I started out thinking, okay, this is an unfortunate deal, but I'm going to come back from it. And the excuse me, Bill, the word stroke never got used with me until I was sitting in um, Dr. Tagliati's office. He's the electrical magician. And he said, you know, by the way, um, your your MRI shows that you did have a stroke, and I want you to know that. And I said, okay. Thanks. I get that. And I was disappointed and probably a little angry at first, but um that's all I remember feeling. My my wife and my brother are I'm very close to, obviously. They both got madder than I did, and they were kind of fidgeting around. And I said, look, I just gotta feel better, and I did get better, and I got out of the hospital in 3 days or so.
Yeah. Okay. And then when you went home, what were the deficits that you had to, the stroke related deficits that you had to deal with?
My right side was still weak in the legs and the arms, but I was able to walk and negotiate stairs in my home, which I have. My bedroom's upstairs and the living space is downstairs. So, with a little help from my wife, I was able to do all the getting around. And I started, I guess I didn't start right away in therapy because I just wanted to heal up. But the other deficit was my my speech, and it was slurred, but worse than it is now. And according to my therapist, who knows the ins and outs, and to people who I just talked to, they say, "Oh, it's gotten quite a bit better, Kevin." So I'm happy that I'm on the track, but I don't know how far I'll come back. It's funny because I'm not kidding. I was looking towards retirement from my job, and I had taken the first course. It was offered over on Zoom, in voice casting and broadcasting, and basically learning how to use your voice and make money at it. Because I thought that might be a fun way to spend some of my retirement. That is probably gonna be tough to do unless they want a guy that sounds like Foster Brooks and kind of plays a drunk guy all the time. But, you know, you never know what part you're gonna get.
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
You seem a little bit like you're taking it well. And you said that your loved ones, your brother and your wife, took it a little worse than you. Are you taking it well, or is it just this your personality? Is there some underlying, anger or frustration? I imagine there is some of it, but how would you describe how you're actually taking this?
There's a little bit of anger with the fact that a mistake I think was made of some kind that caused it, but I still don't feel bitter towards my doctors. I know that they are good doctors, and look, stuff just happens. And I think it's partly my personality. Um, um, and partly my faith, because, I'm a believer in God, and I believe that he's got me in his hands, and he knows what's going to happen. And somehow he's gotten us through the last 9 months, financially, and everything has been okay. But I don't have good disability insurance because there have been some other things going on in my life that make me real expensive to insure. Like, I'm bipolar, and um that for me, that usually means I don't get too manic. I do get hypomanic sometimes, but that's rare. And the issue I have with that is depression. So, like, if I get too stressed out, I'll get depressed. And I've been on medication for a long time. I have two good doctors helping me, and I've been I have been in the hospital for depression twice in my lifetime. The last time was over 13 years ago. But, I have that history. It's in the record. And when insurance companies see that, they don't want to underwrite me at anything I can afford.
Yep, understand. When so when you have a bipolar episode, is the depression shortly after a real manic episode, or does the depression come first and then the manic episode, or is there no real pattern?
It usually happens with me. The way I recall them all is it usually happens. The depressive episode occurs first, and then when I come out of it, I tend to get a little manic. Uh, like, it's not severe. Like, I don't run off to Vegas and put it all on one number and spin the wheel, but I do. I tend to be compulsive about buying things, and I have to watch it because it's like there's so much energy, and it feels so good not to hurt anymore and not to be depressed. That I just, I want to live, and I want to do things. And I end up, you know, buying this and that, and sometimes we don't need it, and I bought my wife a new uh, coffee maker for a house we recently purchased. Um, and when she found out how much it cost, it was from Japan, and she said, "You're taking it back right now." And I had to go, and I went to eBay, and by gosh, they were really good about it, and they gave me my money back. So, lesson learned. But
Uh-huh. Okay. So would how long have you had the bipolar? Is it something that
since
you've
about age 30, I was
uh-huh.
diagnosed at first, and I'm 64 now.
So you were diagnosed at 30, but did you experience the symptoms before?
Yeah, a bit, maybe a little bit in college, but not really big time until my late 20s.
Uh-huh. So
And,
you've dealt with some pretty serious long-term medical conditions related to the brain, right? And
yes,
does that somehow prepare you for this? Does that somehow make it like, well, I got through that, I'm going to get through this? How do you deal with all of that?
I think it does. I'm remarkable. It's remarkable to me. I have a friend who had a stroke about 5 years ago. It was because of AFib, and he got a blood clot up there. And he's a really nice guy. I told him about what happened, and he sent me some paperwork that he got uh, when he was being educated about the stroke. It talks about how plastic the brain is. And I believe that because it's happened for him. His recovery has been pretty remarkable. And he said, Kevin, don't believe them when they tell you after 6 months, your progress is about where it's going to be and not be any better after that.
Yeah.
That's what I was told. And I was depressed about it because when the 6 month mark came, I still had these deficits, but they were better. I admit that, but they were still deficits. And that that really hurled me into a depression there. And it was unfortunate, but my doctors got me through it, and I switched the medication a little bit that they give me, and it worked. So I made it through that, and that works. I think it does help me with the stroke, Bill.
Yeah.
I think it's
Okay.
a good observation.
Yeah. Do you know, is there a connection between bipolar disorder and the medication that they give you and the tremors?
Well, as a matter of fact, there was, well, there is, the mood stabilizer I'm on can cause tremor, and one of the drugs that they use to, kinda come alongside the antidepressants is an antipsychotic, and it can make you that was called Abilify. It can make you tremor, and we experimented by going off of them and stuff, but I could only tolerate being down at a certain dose. I had to have some of it, or I kinda slipped and got more depressed. And it's been a long path for me on depression and accepting that because I didn't want to at first. I was really a type A person, and this was thrown at me, and I thought, hey, I'm not going to let this happen. But I had to admit it, and then I can accept the help. And the help is out there. So that was good news. And I think the brain, it's remarkable how plastic it is, and you said the story about that young man that helped himself by rethinking new pathways, stuff I don't understand go on in the brain, and
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
it's very cool. So with the uh it's quite a long journey for you to get to stroke, bipolar, medication, led to tremors, led to the procedure, led to the stroke. So you can kind of see the process that got to there.
Yeah.
When you're in a depressive state as somebody who has bipolar, do you know that you're there, and do you know that it's going to pass and that you can sit this through even though it's uncomfortable? Or do you not have that awareness? And how would you describe that moment of depression? Because I think people feel like the depression after stroke, because about 30% of people after stroke will experience depression, and it's
Yeah.
related to the stroke. It's also related to their change in identity. It's also related to, the deficits that they have to overcome and the disability they're experiencing. Uh, so what's it like when you're in the depressive state? Do you have an awareness of the fact that you're there and soon you won't be? How does it play out?
Well, I wish it was exactly like that. I have an awareness when I'm in it. I know when I'm feeling down and it's not just the blues for a day or 2 or 3, I tend to get, uh, hard to concentrate. Um, I don't like things I usually like. I tend to withdraw. I don't engage as much with people. And then I realize, oh, I'm in an episode. And so I do know that part of the equation. The other part you said that's so important is, will it go away? and you know that it always has. But I mean, it really has. Every time it's gone away, it's cyclical. But when you're in it, you feel like this is a sickness I'm not going to get over.
Uh-huh.
Like when you're seasick, you don't feel like you're going to ever feel good again. You want to just die. You're so sick. And that's where we need help, because we need someone to come alongside to assure you that it is going to get better, because you're right, it depression doesn't last all that long, but if it lasts any time at all, it's bad. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for depression because I hate it so much. And you know so when somebody's depressed, they're depressed. It doesn't matter why or how,
Yeah.
and that type of thing. But
Yeah.
they need hope.
Yeah. I understand when I I, I don't know if I've been depressed. So I don't get it, but I have had a really difficult time through this last winter where
Yeah.
I don't feel like myself, feel disconnected from myself, etc. It's just coming into spring now in Australia. And it, I recognized that I had been in this state beforehand in winter last year. Everything kind of
Uh,
seems to drop off, the mood, the energy levels, the fatigue increases, the lack of clarity, the inability to focus and concentrate. Uh, but this time I think it was a little more severe, and my wife noticed it more and she made a point of it more. But when I was in that state, I couldn't comprehend exactly the state that I was in and how I had to deal with it. And it
yeah.
and all I had to do was seek out help from other people because I couldn't do it myself. I joined the gym because exercise is good for mood.
Yes.
I
That's
went to the
true.
car. I went to the chiropractor. I went and got massages. I watched what I ate. You know, I did as many things. I went out as often as I could into the sun, etc. I did as much as I could
Yeah.
to kind of do things that support the release of feel good
Wellness.
hormones
Yeah.
and dopamine and all that stuff. So it was like there was a disconnect from my ability to comprehend the state that I was in. And it kind of reminded me when I had a stroke and people said to me, why didn't you go to the hospital? And why did you take 7 days to get there? It was because I was having a stroke. And even though I
Hmm.
appeared okay on the outside and I was
Yeah.
quite capable of doing a lot of other things, I wasn't capable of connecting the dots with the deficits in my left side that I should have medical intervention. I just
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just talked it down, and I just wasn't capable of going, this is serious. No, nothing inside me said, dude, you can't feel your whole left side. Go to the hospital. It,
Yeah.
it was all doing
Wow.
the opposite. So I'm trying to relate the story of the disconnect that you get when you're in a situation. You don't necessarily have the mental capacity to connect the dots in your condition and what you're meant to do.
That's true.
And therefore, perhaps when people are in their bipolar depressive state, they don't have the capacity cognitively because the brain function is altered to go,
Yes.
I actually am aware that even though this situation is happening to me, that it is temporary. Even though you know that you've been through that for 30 years, you still lose that ability. It's kind of like part of the impact that it has is it takes away a certain function of cognitive connection
Yes.
between what you need
Yes.
to do and what you should what you're going through and what you need to do to get it sorted.
Yes. Well, that's very true, and I give you credit for, um, when you were feeling this way, at least doing all the things right that you could think to do. That's a positive. Um, my father used to teach me because I was an athlete in school, but I wasn't a great athlete. I had to work hard and 'cause smallish and everything, and he always said, "You're gonna have to do all the little things right if you wanna be good." And so when I hear about someone taking those steps, you gotta feel good about it. But then you're still left with the feeling that it's not gonna go away, or you were having the feeling, I don't need to go to the doctor. And it is a cognitive thing, and that happens in depression too. You can really lose some ability to think clearly. And that's why, for one reason, that's another of many reasons why it's so important to have some support around you, because, like you said, your wife mentioned it to you, so she helps you be aware of something was kind of off. And I have two people in my life like that. My wife and my kid brother were very close, and I'd call him and just tell him I'm not doing good. I'm feeling down, and then I probably should call the doctor, and then he'd say, you definitely need to call the doctor. That'd be like me saying something's wrong with my left side. I gotta go to the doctor. And I at least had a glimmer to know that that was what worked before. And so I went to him, and at the encouragement of people, and then he changed the medication, and it was, and unfortunately, with depression, even when you get the right medications, for example, it takes weeks sometimes for it to clear up. But and you don't really know. It's trial and error, but it can help you get back on your feet. I don't preach medication, but it works for some people, doesn't for others.
Do you go to work in those states when you have a manic episode or a depressive episode? Are you capable of being fully active and working correctly and well?
I have a history of episodes during the last 30 years where I did stay at work, and I I thought for a long time I must be the most sensitive real estate broker in California, because I have a crying spell on the way into the office, have to pull over to an off ramp and just let it pass and then go to work. And it was really hard, and sometimes it was too much. Once, uh, like about 25 years ago, I did go into the hospital because I wasn't on the right medication and didn't have the right things going on, and the doctor helped me then. And then again, after I had a surgery for my prostate to be removed, because of cancer, um, I did get depressed after that, and I don't know if it was just the surgery or my reaction to it or something else. I had, you know, things were stressful at work, so there was a big stress going on, and I got I had to take some time off. And most recently, I went back to work in January after the stroke, and that was probably a little too soon,
Yep.
and I I I did it, I made it, I worked till June, and then finally it caught up with me. I got depressed, and I said, "Hey, I'm out of here. I gotta take some time off," and the doctor cooperated and wrote me a note, and I took off a month, you know, recently
Okay.
because I needed the time off, yeah.
Okay. Well, I like that. You definitely are not the first person who said I went back to work too early after the stroke. Not
Oh,
most people.
good.
Most people
Uh,
want to get back because it helps to create a environment of, okay, things are getting back to normal. Uh,
yeah.
they get to be themselves again, hanging out with people again, and it's useful. There's definitely a benefit to going back to work, uh,
Yeah.
not only financially but emotionally and mentally, etc. But many people go back to work and then regret it, and then realize how hard it is. But I did the same thing. But the thing about it is, it's kind of like a muscle going back to work. You have to push through the pain barrier to see where you're really at, and then you can reassess. And then you can go,
Yeah.
okay, hang on a second now. I think I need to take a couple of steps back. So
Right.
it's great that you did that because now you know what needs to happen so that you can ease back into uh, that work environment
Yes.
and the pressure of it, and the emails and the phone calls and the driving and all the stuff that goes with it. So that's a lot for a brain to handle that's healing after a stroke. Definitely, definitely a lot. Now you also threw in there, because I thought you were already amazing. You know, you've already had bipolar and essential tremors and then stroke, but you also threw in there a prostate cancer just for a good measure.
Yeah. Well, I was 50 years old and I went to the doctor and he felt something in there when he was giving me the exam. And I said to this guy, I go, "What is it?" And he said, "It's either an infection or it's a tumor." And I go, "Well, can't you give me some good news?" And um, I went and had a biopsy and it was cancer, in fact, and it had to be removed because it had uh, grown to the point already where it had broken the capsule of the prostate. So they figured, and I got a real good doctor that went in and did the surgery robotically and took it out. And because I was very young for a guy to have prostate cancer,
Yeah.
and they figured my survival would be best served by removal. And so far it's been okay. I am still being treated for it with a hormone therapy, but you know, my PSA is down pretty low. You'd think with a prostate being taken out, you shouldn't have a PSA count,
Uh-huh. But you
and
still
that
do.
would be ideal. But I have some amount of cancer cells floating around in my body somewhere. But fortunately, no tumors yet. I get scanned and everything. So that's a stressor too, I suppose. But I've kind of rolled with that one.
The PSA stands for prostate specific antigen, whatever the hell that means. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's the word that they throw around. So can we talk about that a little bit? What made prompted you to go and have that examination?
Well, that was just a regular checkup.
Uh-huh.
It was
Men,
one of
listen,
those.
pay attention. Men, go and get regular checkups.
Yeah. And no, I think back to it. It was a regular checkup, but the reason I went in because the flow of my urine was very reduced and it was slow stream. And I thought, I'm 50 years old, not 70. I should still be able to put out fires. So it wasn't, something was wrong, and that's what it was. It was putting pressure on it, and was restricting the flow. So that was something you really have to listen to.
So, when are you writing the book?
Uh, yeah, I wish as soon as I find out the happy ending, I guess I'll write the book. It's gonna happen though, I really think.
Just write the
But
book and on the last page, do the dot 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 dot. Do you know? So
to
that
be continued.
yeah, so that we can let it get to that stage. You know,
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Bill. It's a good idea.
man, it's extraordinary to hear your story because a lot of people uh, go through life unscathed most of the time, and then they have stroke, and then they don't have what sounds like a real good toolbox of dealing with shit things that happen in life.
Yes.
And then it's overwhelming. It's how do I deal with this stroke? Because it's messed up everything.
Yeah.
I've never had the experience before and I don't know how to respond. And I felt a little bit like that after the third bleed that I had in my head and the brain surgery, because it was like, well, I've been through this twice already. none of it's none of it's
Yeah.
pleasant. It's taken 3 years,
Yeah.
but I've got some kind of a it feels like it doesn't feel unfamiliar, you know. All right,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
opening my head and feeling around in there and taking stuff out, that's unfamiliar. But when I woke up and I couldn't walk and I couldn't use my left side, I just thought, well, all right, I've got work to do. I've got to get stuff done. And I never focused on anything other than what I needed to solve, the problems that I needed to solve. Now, of course, I wasn't perfect. I wasn't the most amazing person recovering from a stroke ever. I had bad days and I was down and I was moody and I had all those issues, of course. But mostly the task on hand was, all right, let's get on my feet. Task one. Task two, let's get back home. Task three, let's drive again. And then task four, let's get to work and so on. And it took quite a long time to get through all those steps. And I never had a
Yeah.
timeline on it, but I just got to working solving problems. And it sounds like you're really, really, really good at that.
I'm involved in it pretty heavy now, and I need to do some more. I mean, I'm also losing weight, and I'm finally able to do that. And I got a decent diet and healthy food, and I need to go back to working out. I stopped lifting weights right before the surgery,
Uh,
and I want to go back to the gym. At least I had a personal trainer twice a week, and it was really good for me, and it was helping my mobility, and it was making me feel good. So all those things are so important that you mentioned, and the key, the behind what you're talking about is managing somehow not to react like a victim,
yeah.
um, and look at it as a problem to solve. That's really healthy, but I mean, it's hard to do sometimes, and we need forgiveness along the way and people who love us. But that's the most important thing.
I love the fact that you went back to the gym. So did I. And it's helped so much. And because I avoided the gym because I'm afraid of lifting, for example, in a bench press with my left
Yeah,
hand, because my left hand fatigues quicker than my right
it
hand.
it
And,
does. Yeah,
and you get this imbalance. And I'm always imagining the bar falling on my neck and choking me to death
oh
or something.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Now, there's people around that wouldn't happen, but it risks injury. So I just told my guys who developed my weight training program, all my exercises are going to be on machines that are supported,
Yeah.
and
Oh, good. That's
a-
good.
and there's no free weights. I don't do free weights. Not
Yeah.
the only ones I do are for bicep curls, and all the rest are all on machines. Even the tricep ones, uh, absolutely everything is on a machine, so that I can get real good structure and resistance without being concerned that, for example, my left hand, if I'm doing a tricep exercise above my head and backward up
Yeah.
and down above my head, I could lose grip on that and it could fall off if it's a very heavy weight. And
Ah, yes.
sometimes my hand just lets go and it doesn't realize that it's not holding on
Yeah.
tight enough. So it's like, okay, I'll get back, I'll do that. And that's really helping. What I also love that you said is that you're you're considering your diet. So there's such a thing as a bipolar diet. And I've heard a lot of people get good results from doing diet interventions to sort of help smooth out the range of the manic and the depressive episodes, and that they've noticed that some foods trigger the depressive episode much more and some the manic episode. And I've read many years ago that one of the things that depletes lithium in the body for some people is sugar. That for some people, sugar is kind of like a something that they're allergic to, and one of the reactions it does is to suck out lithium stores from the body, or also to stop lithium from being absorbed. And
Oh,
if
wow.
if you're able to take out, high fructose corn syrup out of those sodas, for example, and wherever else it's added, which is in tons of places, and if you minimize your consumption of white sugar and brown sugar and all that type of stuff, and you get your sugar only from, say, a whole plant, a whole food like a plum,
Yeah.
or it helps to support the lithium uh, stores in the body.
That's good. Yeah.
So there's a lot of hope.
Lithium's important.
Yeah, there's a lot of hope in that space of specifically working out whether your diet is sort of aligned with a diet like a bipolar diet, for example.
Yeah.
There's
I'll look into that because that sounds very positive. Be-
an Australian psychiatrist who wrote a book about it, and I've been trying to find her name. I have the book inside the house. I've been trying to find her name, and I couldn't find it. I'll get it for you. She wrote a book about a diet that supports uh, evidence of a diet that supports bipolar disorder, and it wouldn't be the only one. There's a lot of scientific studies that show people getting good results from changing their diet.
Yeah. That is great to hear. And yeah, the I think the thing about the bipolar thing, it is a lifetime deal. So
Yes.
I've I've accepted that I'm going to probably need to take this cocktail of medications in
Yeah.
some shape or form my whole life.
Yeah.
And but changing the way I eat could be very important, and
Supportive.
reducing the sugar might be really good.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to find a big benefit from reducing sugar just for the stroke recovery, because sugar is inflammatory. So when the brain has a stroke, it is inflamed in that spot. And what we want to do is decrease the inflammation. And sugar is one of those things which is really highly inflammatory, and it makes fatigue and deficits worse. I notice it myself. If I have sugar, my left side goes, wobbly, and it doesn't feel great. And I can feel the sugar actually coursing through my body now because I don't have much of it at all.
Really?
Yeah, and I noticed that uh, the fatigue gets worse. So I get more fatigued after I have a cake, for example, at a birthday
Yeah.
party. and that food coma is quicker onset and more dramatic.
Yeah. Wow. That's great.
Yeah. So
The
everything that you do with regards to diet is going to benefit not only a little bit of the bipolar, but it's also going to benefit the stroke recovery. And of course, you you do the diet thing to support the other things that you're doing. So the diet is not in replacement of
yes. Yes.
your medical treatment, it is in support of your medical treatment, so that what you're not doing is doing a good thing on one hand and then making it worse on the other hand by drinking too much beer, or
Yeah.
smoking, or eating at a
Yeah.
fast food restaurant every day.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the role that I took. I decided that I wasn't, if I couldn't get myself off the medication and all that stuff, because the doctor suggested that I would have to stay on something for the rest of my life, I at least didn't want to be contributing to making it worse. And I I made that my responsibility, and I started to learn about specific diets that are good for neurological wellness.
That's great. I can't wait to read that book on by the Australian doctor, and I'm sure that'll help. I'm the other thing that's going on with me is most recently I've decided to stop drinking all alcohol because I know that it's bad for what's happening to me neurologically, and it's bad for mood. And um I was born, I mean, raised playing football, and then switched to rugby in college. And rugby without drinking beer was unheard of, except for the Tongan team. It was all Mormon. They was the only guys I ever met that didn't drink beer at the reception. So um I I have kind of made it a part of my life for celebrating things and doing stuff, but it can it's borderline. Sometimes it can get out of hand, and I know it's not good for me. Just the sugar alone
Yeah, mate.
is remarkably
Uh,
bad.
Yeah, tell me about when did you stop drinking?
Like
Well,
about 3 days ago.
congratulations. Okay, I would love to hear about it when you're 30 days out,
Sure.
because you're going to notice a massive difference. It's going to improve so many things.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I just gotta do it, and I'm gonna bite the bullet. And at first I see it as a loss, and it's only a loss if you think you can't celebrate and stuff like that. With my buddies, they don't care. They, they know everybody's getting older, and same with my family. They've already demonstrated they're very supportive of me doing that. So,
Somebody should have told you that after a stroke, you're not meant to drink for at least 12 months. At least.
really?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
yeah, that would have been good advice because it can't be helping me. And it's
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 not giving my body the chance
it's
that it
definitely
would
not
have.
helping your brain heal. It's making your brain prolong its recovery.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you take that out and everything starts to improve again, because everyone who has been in your situation with drinking after sport and all that kind of stuff, and even when you just went out with your friends on the weekend or with family or whatever, if you overdrank the next day, you could say, yeah, I think I killed some brain cells. I mean, we used
Yeah.
to say that tongue in cheek, but it's
Yeah.
actually legitimate. It doesn't does nothing positive other than taste good, quench your thirst, perhaps, and make you feel a little disinhibited. Okay. But in the long term, especially as the brain ages, alcohol is making aging increase more rapidly, and alcohol is decreasing your rate of recovery, and alcohol is making bipolar uh, swings worse. Alcohol is making fatigue of the brain worse, your speech worse. It's making everything worse. It's not doing anything to create a better environment. It's always reducing the quality of the environment. So if you can
Yes.
avoid it and stay off it, I would love to hear back in 30 days. You tell me what you've noticed, and
Okay.
that'll be
I
awesome.
will.
There's your
I'll
homework.
take you. I'll take you up on that.
There's your there's your homework. You stop drinking for 30 days, tell me how you feel, and I'll brag about it with everybody.
All right. That's fair enough.
What a journey. I mean, that's pretty stunning journey that you've been through. I really appreciate uh your attitude of kind of regardless of what you've been through is just keep moving forward and never give up. Is it something that you had to practice, or is it something that you you had to did you learn that? Is it your family? Where did you kind of learn to keep going? Because most people who have been through something like you've been through would say, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you managed it, Kevin. I wouldn't be able to do it if it was me. How do you do it?
Yeah. Well, I think that has a lot to do with my family, how I was raised, and then as an adult, it had a lot to do with just my faith that
Mhm.
um, I feel some level of protection there that is real to me. And like I think about my family, my mom is German, but she's American, but she's a German descent, and she could be kind of standoffish at times, but she's the strongest person I know. She's still going strong. She's 87, and she's like the Energizer Bunny. And she just says, "Be strong and keep going." And my dad was very similar. He passed away, but um, he helped us in athletics and at school to try to do our best always. And
Yeah.
yeah, it just seems natural.
It sounds like they set a good example. And that's one of the things I love telling stroke survivors is, it's difficult and it's hard. And I don't even know the words to describe it. For some people, difficult and hard don't even begin to describe what stroke recovery is like. And uh,
Yeah.
and I can appreciate that, right? But I would say that if if you can be one thing as a stroke survivor, you can be a good example to show others of how you go about recovery. And
Right. That's a good point.
and I've got kids who are younger, who were in their teens when I had my first stroke, and it was like, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to show them how when something goes wrong, how you curl up in a ball and just go and sit in the corner and wait for death? Or am I going to show them a good example of how you tackle this and how you take life on and how you fight for your recovery and the rest of it? And I took that route, and that made me feel like the suffering. Well, I don't know if it was worth it, but like the suffering was okay to experience because I was going to transform it in some way and turn it into a lesson.
Yes. Yes.
I didn't tell my kids that this is the lesson that you guys have to learn from this. I just
Yeah.
behaved in a way where
You
they could,
lived it.
yeah, I behaved in a way where they could later on in life, when maybe in many, many years when I'm not around and they're going through a tough time, they might go, I've seen, I have an example of how to overcome uh,
Yes.
something serious. I remember that from
That's
back in the day,
really
and maybe
well,
they can.
that's a very good lesson to teach your children, and it's the most authentic way to teach them. So, you know,
Yeah,
kudos. And your children are fortunate to have a father who looks at it that way.
and I think the people around you are also fortunate because you're a good example of somebody who just takes life's what life throws at you, and then you just deal with it and move forward. And that's really awesome. I love it. It's the whole purpose of these episodes is to give people the sense that the struggle is, well, worth it. Maybe I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah,
I don't know what the
yeah.
word is, but I'll just say worth it.
I think that's a good way to put it because there are days when you feel like, I just this isn't going that well and I should be here and not
Yeah,
where I am. And you can do that to yourself, but it it you just have to keep it positive. And I have I feel like he's a mentor. There's an author named Henry Nouwen who writes, he was a priest, um, and he writes little books about uh, life and challenges. And he calls himself a wounded healer. And he says, we heal people, we can help heal them by revealing our woundedness to them and, carrying on. And it's a good example for you, for
yeah,
me and for everybody.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. So, what I've started doing at the end of the episode is asking this question. Now, I could ask this about any of the conditions that you've experienced, but I'm going to ask it specifically about stroke. What was the hardest part about stroke for you so far?
I think the hardest part for me was the potential changes to my identity. You said that before, and I was very uncertain about how bad it was going to be, how long it was going to take, and just how many deficits I really had when I came out. Um, so that was probably the hardest thing. It was like looking over a cliff in the great crevasse there and going, what how am I gonna get to the other side of this? And it was scary. But um, it calmed down after a while. And the thing it starts to you see areas where you can make a little progress, like in speech therapy. You can make progress in physical therapy and exercise. So there is hope, and that feels good.
Yeah, awesome. What has stroke taught you, if anything?
I think having a stroke taught me one thing for sure, and that is I have a lot of empathy for other stroke victims because I went through it, and I don't know if it's something you can ascribe to somebody until you go through it. It's like you feel like a part of you got robbed, and you can get upset about it and everything, but and there's so many worse deficits than I have. I mean, we've all seen people who are almost catatonic as a result of the stroke, and everything from there to, you know, even better than I am, and they're just doing fine. And it's remarkable.
Yeah. What do you want to tell others who are listening, who have had a stroke, who are probably early on in their journey? What do you want to tell them?
I want to tell you, please don't give up hope that it will pass eventually. And I'm still on the journey, but I've seen progress. And I've now run into some very good people like Bill and for example, that I never would have met before. And uh it's taking me some places to see things that I wouldn't have seen. And it for instance, it made me be a guy at work that had to take some time off. And there's no shame in that. But I thought there was at first, and there is no shame. So carry on and do your best and rely on those around you.
Awesome way to finish the podcast, mate. Thank you so
Uh,
much for reaching out and being on the show, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
I loved it, Bill. Thank you for your help.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. Kevin is an amazing guy doing great things and really does paint a picture about how to keep going after recovery no matter what comes up. Now, remember to grab a copy of chapter 1 of the book, The Unexpected Way That Stroke Became the Best Thing That Happened. Just visit recoveryafterstroke.com/book. Take a look around and discover what the book is all about and click the download free chapter button. As always, to learn more about my guests, including links to their social media and other pages, and to download a full transcript of the entire interview, please go to recoveryafterstroke.com/episodes. To all those people who have already left a review, it means the world to me. Thank you so much. You are helping others in need of this type of content to find it easier, and that's making their stroke recovery just that little bit better. If you haven't left a review yet and you would like to, the best way to do it is go to Spotify and iTunes, leave a 5-star review there, and a few words about what the show means to you. If you're watching on YouTube, comment below the video. I love seeing the comments and I respond to all the comments. Like this episode, of course, and to get notifications of future episodes, subscribe to the show. Thanks again for being here and listening. I really appreciate you. See you on the next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.